Sadhguru has spoken in smaller gatherings about how he has structured this entire organization very consciously. And he's drawn, like formally, organizations are, the organograms are, etc., etc. So he has drawn the structure of Isha, which looks nothing like an organogram, but it looks exactly like a yantra. So then when he announced this, very suddenly, this Sthapana, which is one part of the consecration, he was asked, Sadhguru, you have said that, it's a life-taking process. So why now? So then Sadhguru said that not everything that happens here is my doing, There are things that have been set in motion which have brought things to such a stage that this can be done. Starting out, Sadhguru said that you must build in 3 years. In Sannithi, what took 30 years to build. But in terms of footfalls, we got there in less than 3 years. Our daily footfall is anywhere in a weekday between 10 to 20, 25,000. Weekends is 40, 50,000. This Mahashivratri, we had close to 5 lakh people. He told me a long time ago, when I was still new, some discussion happening and he wanted us to do something. And I, naive as I was, I said, no, Sadhguru, this is not possible. So he looked at me and said, there are forces at work here way beyond what you can understand. You just make sure you don't get in the way.
You're not an impediment.
You're not an impediment. That's all you have to do. So me and another volunteer, we were traveling with Sadhguru for this visit to Exploratorium. And there was one exhibit or a machine which is about mental football. We got into it, and just as we're about to start, Sadhguru just whispered into my ears, like within a minute, I had scored a goal. And they are like, I suddenly heard clapping and all that. Oh, well done. And the goal had happened. So Sadhguru was very happy,
Lot of times I used to think he's a magician.
Yeah.
You work closely with Sadhguru, when it comes to the communications and all of that. Particularly in the last 10 years, we have seen the social media has also picked up. A lot of crisis comes in, some way, some baseless allegation, some vested group of, interested, people doing something. At any point of time, did you get a chance to look at how he was handling it? Was he upset or, kind of agitated or,
So I think at one level, there is that sense, especially for someone like Sadhguru, who, as we know, like he says that if he just sits with his eyes closed, the world doesn't exist for him. So every activity, everything that he's doing is, basically for others' benefit. So when that is the case, how is it that, there is so much of opposition to him, At one level, there is that feeling. But beyond that, he's a realized master. He knows how imperfect each one of us are. And especially with regard to this, people who have been very close, who have played a pivotal role, in building this center, and then they turning against. He says, this is karma.
Oh, this is karma. He says that?
Yeah. This is how, if you don't loosen the grip of karma on you, this is what can happen. No matter what you're exposed to, what your experience has been, you can still. So I think it's a very good warning for all of us to be constantly vigilant, so that we don't allow this to happen.
Yeah.
Sadhguru has created this whole support structure for us to be the way we are, That also brings me, this is something that's not very widely spoken or understood yet. But Sadhguru has spoken in smaller gatherings with the GCs, etc., about how he has structured this entire organization, very consciously. And he's drawn, like we talk about organization chart, how we look at how formally, organizations are, the organograms are, etc., etc. So he has drawn the structure of Isha, which looks nothing like an organogram, but it looks exactly like a yantra.
Oh.
And
he draw physically?
He's physically drawn. Yeah. And in that, we are all part of it. Like each individual is sort of mapped to that. And when he did that for the first time, and we all know what yantras are, right? That it actually amplifies the faculties that we already have as human beings. So because we have the faculty of sight, a microscope and a telescope, because we can speak, there is a microphone and a telephone and all of that. So similarly, the temple is also a yantra. It amplifies certain subjective faculties that we have. So for Sadhguru, geometry is the most important thing, whether he looks at a person or whether he looks at the land. And even when it comes to creating an organization, his focus is on the geometry. Yeah. Like he says, if I look at a person, I can tell the past, present, and future because simply by the geometry.
Yes.
And similarly, when it comes to creating an organization, it has to have the perfect geometry. Only then, will it take you places. And when I saw that form and when Sadhguru spoke about it, I just recalled Sadhguru talks about the story of when his motorcycling days, where he would actually
have all the spare parts.
Correct.
Yeah.
And once he had, dismantled the entire engine and cleaned it before going on a journey, and the maid sawed it, thought it some scrap and put it away.
Yeah.
But those scraps, seemingly those pieces of scrap, when they come together in the right way, and you turn the ignition and the engine comes to life and it can take you everywhere. But by themselves, those pieces are nothing. They're worth nothing.
Right.
So that is how he's created these organizations. He says that in Isha, we are a bunch of idiots. There are a bunch of idiots doing extraordinary things. How does that happen? How do extraordinary things happen if you're all idiots? It's because we have been brought together in a certain way, in a certain cohesive way, that together we become one formidable force and can do anything. And he provides the energy, like the fuel for the engine.
You casually let out the secret.
When I don't think Sadhguru wants to keep it a secret. He wants everybody to know about it. It's just that we ourselves haven't understood enough to be able to start talking about. We have tried, in small parts, but not everything.
I think understanding the big picture is always going to be bigger than whatever we saw, whatever we could understand actually.
Yeah.
I think in one of the interviews, one, big anchor and an actress should have asked, Sadhguru is the next who after you? Then Sadhguru will say, do you think I'm sitting here without a plan?
Yeah.
So, he's a plan.
Definitely. And in fact, it's not a secret because he actually wants us to teach this in Sadhguru Academy. So we're trying to wrap our head around it in a way that we can start teaching. But that is his objective, that, it should be understood to everybody and people can also start applying that in every walk of life. One simple thing that we have understood and we are all trying to implement is working in triads, Like he says that in any department or any team, there should be 3 people who should be fully involved in all the aspects. And there is one person who is, let's say, and it doesn't mean that all 3 are are involved equally in decision making. It's not a decision making by consensus. So there is one person who, let's say, is the current decision maker. There is another person who is, let's say, the next in line. And the third one who is being groomed. The idea is that the other two are also then privy to understanding how decision making happens. What is the basis? What kind of discussions happen? So this is the way he wants us to start working, involve people bring together people in groups of 3. And then at some point of time, he also wants that you shouldn't be doing the same thing that you're doing more than 2 or 3 years. You should be able to hand it over to somebody, not rotation, hand it over to somebody. And you, because you have gained experience, you should be able to take up bigger things, because now the phase that we are in, Sadhguru is talking about 5 more centers coming up shortly. Okay. Each of us have to upgrade our, skills and empower our teams so that we are left free to do things. So in that context, this working in groups of 3 becomes even more important. That others also get trained to the whole process of decision making and understanding, and they can take those responsibilities.
Yeah, and they're not left clueless.
Exactly. Suddenly it doesn't come to them. Yeah. They're all on the same page. And then slowly, one by one goes out from the triad, and then somebody else comes in. And it's a seamless process. And why a triad? Because he says in nature that is the most stable form. And he also talks about, in the same note, the qualities that are important in Isha. And all of this is shared because he wants us to teach the same things in our leadership academy. So he puts in the order of the qualities that are important. The highest is commitment, but even more than commitment, devotion. Because he told me a long time ago, when I was still new, there's some discussion happening and he wanted us to do something. And I, naive as I was, I said, no, Sadhguru, this is not possible. So he looked at me and said, there are forces at work here way beyond what you can understand. You just make sure you don't get in the way.
Oh. You're not an impediment.
You're not an impediment. That's all you have to do. Things are happening.
How do we ensure that we are not the impediment?
Exactly. That is the biggest challenge. We have to be, again, conscious. So when devotion happens, devotion really means that you have dissolved, There is nothing of you. Then you become a receptacle for everything that has to flow through you. So devotion is the biggest quality. Second, of course, is capability. But capability can be built. Provided there is intelligence and there is devotion, capability can be built. So these are the inner qualities of a person. And the third is cohesiveness. How do people work together with least friction? Because the friction is the one thing that dissipates the energy of any organization. As in physics, the friction dissipates energy. When there is no friction, there is unlimited energy. So how do you do that? And in many ways, this yantra with all these little, discrete parts can really work as one when there is 100% cohesion. When the individual identity is nothing, it has got subsumed by the larger identity. Sadhguru, like I said, because for him, geometry is so important. Like if you sit in a certain way, you will become the antenna and you can download the entire universe. That's how Sadhguru talks about geometry. So this triad, it's a geometrical form, the visual form, which is most important. He's to the extent that he says that, all these companies do bar charts, etc. So they'll be like rectangles, If they just replace that with triangles, it'll, create a different kind of magic. Just that geometrical form of a triangle is so powerful. If you look at all the yantras, like this yantra or whatever, it's made up of all triangles, So the geometrical form of the triangle is extremely important and significant.
Isha's logo has a triangle.
Yeah.
This is so, revealing to know that Sadhguru sees the geometry, of a triangle, even in an organization chart or a structure.
Yeah.
As it is in an yantra. I don't know what to say. It's wild. All these years you've been with him, were there desperate moments in your life where you desperately wanted his advice. It's really life on that situation. I know, your parents thing. Anything else personally when we were reached out, or it could be related to the activity that we are about to.
Yeah. So that's the thing, looking back, I feel that statement by Sadhguru that there are forces at work. I have completely surrendered to that force. Really, if you ask me, there is no anxiety, and there have been many situations that we have been faced with in the past 4 or 5 years. But that knowing that there's something at work, it'll, see us through. It's always worked. It's always worked. I never get stressed about any situation because I know it's not me. If I had to do it, I would get stressed. There's something else that's happening. So I just have to make sure I don't get in the way.
There's lots of wisdom.
So, one interesting thing. So when moved to Bangalore, that was also like I'd been here for 12 years and I knew that the Sadhguru Academy will come up in Bangalore. And I knew that it was still some time away, some many years away. So when that happens, maybe I'll have to spend more time in Bangalore. But I had no idea. Sadhguru never told me that, Sadhguru Sanadhi, I'll have to manage, I'll have to relocate. He never told me. So right after the pandemic, when he decided that instead of just the academy, we are going to build a full-fledged ashram in Bangalore, which decision actually he took after the pandemic. Initially, when we bought the land, the initial 97 acres, it was only the Leadership Academy. Then I think the pandemic, sort of would have changed things in his perspective when he realized that a full-fledged center is needed. So right after that, he was visiting Bangalore more often. We're trying to acquire more land, and he was also. So I would travel along with him, and then sometime the pandemic got over in 2021, and then after that, for the following till early 2022, every other month we were going for some, meetings, discussions. Then once he just told me in 2022 that, okay, now you're here. So it was like that. I felt totally abandoned, And first of all, I don't know the first thing about setting up a center. And I've never been in Bangalore, So that was a very overwhelming feeling for me at that point of time. And he said, I'll be with you every moment of the way. But it didn't really register. I was like wallowing in self-pity at that time when he said that that I was going to be, because I had also worked very closely with him and I knew that being in Bangalore meant that all that was, yeah. So I was very busy wallowing in self-pity at the time that he said this to me. So I never understood the significance of what he said, that I'll be with you every moment of the way. That was, okay, he's saying this because he's abandoning me in Bangalore. But I understood the significance of it later. And I also understood that, if he doesn't like a child, if you always hold the child's hand, the child will never learn how to walk by, his or her own. Will never. And so you have to let go at some point of time so that you don't stop the growth. Yeah. And to allow that growth to happen, you have to do that. And that's what he did, in a way. And really, I mean, it's totally enveloped by grace all the time. Everything happens. Of course, we are, there are things that we have to be at it. But I've realized one thing, as long as I show up, things will happen. That's all I need to do. Some crisis happening, I have to be involved. Okay, this, that. Something will, it'll get resolved. So really, there is no stress. Yes, you must come. See, in the kind of footfall, when we were building, when it was starting out, Sadhguru said that you must build in 3 years in Sanathi, what took 30 years to build. Of course, infrastructure, we are not quite there because that is dependent on so many other factors like approvals, construction, etc. But in terms of footfalls, we got there in less than 3 years. Our daily footfall is anywhere in a weekday between 10 to 20, 25,000. Weekends is 40, 50,000. This Mahashivratri, we had close to 5 lakh people. Yes.
Nobody's talking about it.
Really? That's such a sad thing. You should talk about it. Since And the thing is, for Mahashivratri, here people come and we say, okay, Sadhguru is there. There we're just doing live stream. They're just coming out of the devotion, without the Guru's presence.
I'm just completely, confounded. How come people are in such large numbers going in? Definitely, I don't think they're all coming here there to take selfies, but something else is pulling them.
Yeah.
In spite of the traffic, in spite of being out of city for 2 hours.
Yeah.
All of this.
Absolutely. And the Yogeshwar Linga also there, it's a much bigger temple because, we won't have a Dhyana Linga there. Sadhguru has made it much bigger, and each of the Saptarishis have their own little space. They're not just like one panel, so they have their own little spaces, etc. So, and the combination of the Naga and the Yogeshwar Linga, it's so intoxicating.
Why don't you talk about Benisa?
So in Benisa, of course, as the name suggests, it is offering butter to the Naga. It happens every Purnami and every Amavasya. So you're given a bowl of butter and you climb up on a scaffolding kind of a staircase, and you apply the butter with your own hands on the Naga. And it is totally, I don't know how to describe that experience. Then once you've done that, you come and sit and you chant the Nageshwara chant. I could do that for the rest of my life. And the days that I do Benisa, this gets over in about an hour maximum, with the chant and with the extended sitting and all that. But the whole day, I'm in a daze. I'm my feet don't touch the ground almost, That's the feeling it gives me. But of course, I've heard Sadhguru speak about all the other benefits that Benisa gives, because this Naga dosha, which is a very common, I don't know what to call it. It's not an affliction, but it is a condition that most people have. So it removes that. So it, in terms of physical ailments, and especially for women's health, it is extremely supportive. And Naga, as we all know, with the Adiyogi, it's same level of perception. So it is about that aspect also. But I'm saying even without going into that, just how one feels within oneself, having just done the process, it has to be experienced to know.
How many people can do Benisa in a day? Purnami day or an Amavasya?
So there can be, the process itself can be done in about 25 minutes or so, and then another 10 minutes to clean that benne for the next person to do. So it starts in the morning by about 6.
25 people can.
Yeah.
Very limited number of people.
Yes.
Really touching the...
Exactly. Can you imagine? Yes. It's a very special. Exactly. In such an intimate way, literally smearing the entire form with the benne.
I think in many ways, Sadhguru kind of eliminated this thing of very sacred thing and only certain people should touch.
Yeah.
And other people shouldn't touch.
It's made it so accessible.
And anybody with devotion, with seeking can just go do this.
Yeah.
Not many temples, not many places are,
Absolutely. No restriction, especially for women, some of the traditional temples have so many restrictions for women, and here
he's kind of dismantling the entire thing.
Totally.
Whatever we were saying about
totally, and it, I'm sure, is therefore very threatening for those whose livelihood depends on these. So to come back to the kind of all kinds of wild allegations and the incessant campaigns that happen against Sadhguru is because of this, because he's disrupting all these,
age-old traditions.
Yeah.
He respects in many, many places. A lot of what he's doing is probably the pre-colonial...
Before it got corrupted. He's against all the corruption. He's peeling off all the corruption that has crept into, our tradition.
It's too raw.
Yeah, it is in the purest form, how it was. He's removed all the impurities that have crept in with the passage of time.
For many reasons, he's a thorn in the flesh.
Yeah.
Many people.
Of course.
I think that's one of the reasons why the traditionalist oppose.
Yes, which is so unfortunate, because how many of the young people, not just Indian people, but across the world, and we have to expand the appeal of our culture to the whole world. How many would go to the traditionalists? And you see the numbers in which, young people from across the world, they throng here, they throng to Sadhguru. So they should understand that what he's offering is also contemporary, in a package, in a way that appeals to everybody. It's such a pity that, they take such a narrow view, which is just self-destructive, self-defeating.
You were mentioning about something that happened in Chicago during our conversation about playing in front of Sadhguru when your mind is at fullest restfulness. Why not you share about it?
So this was in 2016. At that time, Sadhguru was keen to establish a science exploratorium. And there are many exploratoriums in in the US. And somebody had mentioned that Chicago has a very interesting science exploratorium, and they had arranged for a visit by Sadhguru to see their place and also to meet with their officials to understand what kind of installations and how they can be implemented here. So me and another volunteer, we were traveling with Sadhguru for this visit to Exploratorium. So we went to the Exploratorium in the morning. We saw all the exhibits. And there was one exhibit or a machine which is about mental football, which is that there are two people on either side. They are... their eyes are blindfolded, and there is something that is connected to their head, which measures the frequency of the brain waves, which act on the ball. Now, this is like a board game kind of a ball. So there are two goalposts and there is a ball. The idea is that each one tries to hit the ball into the goalpost, the opposite goalpost. But the tricky part is that you don't try to force it, The more restful your brain is, and in the restful state, whatever, I don't know, alpha, beta, gamma, whatever rays are emitted, waves are emitted, that is the wave that acts on the ball. So you have to be totally restful, the more restful you are, the higher the chances of your winning. So we passed that and two people were playing and, it was going from here, there. We stood and watched that game for 5-7 minutes. Nobody scored a goal. The ball kept going from this side to that side. And I said, okay, good. They are playing. We don't have to play this. Otherwise, it will be a bit embarrassing to play this kind of a game in front of Sadhguru. So we looked at all the exhibits. Then we went to the meeting. They made presentations and everything happened. By then, the entire day got over. By the time we came out of the meeting and we're leaving the museum had shut. There were no other visitors. So when we were exiting, we crossed that same exhibit because, we had taken a lot of interest in that exhibit. We stood there for nearly 7-8 minutes and Sadhguru was very interested. So as we were passing, they asked, would you like to try it? Sadhguru said, yes, we will try it. And out of the 2 volunteers, the other one, he was carrying the camera. So I knew he was going to escape. And in our group, there was another lady who was not a meditator. She was a friend of the family that was hosting Sadhguru. So she had also come with us. So there was this lady and there was this me. So I knew that, only we two will be the... So we got into it and my heart was palpitating like crazy. Then, just as we're about to start, Sadhguru just whispered into my ears, do Isha Kriya. I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. So I was doing it. And for me, it felt like forever. But actually later I realized, like within a minute, I had scored a goal. And they are like, I suddenly heard clapping and all that. Oh, well done, well done. And the goal had happened.
Really?
Yeah.
The palpitating heartbeat. So I thought you will hit the ball with your heartbeat only.
Exactly. I mean, far from I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. I was only conscious of my body and only conscious of my mind. But even within that, the meditation was. So Sadhguru was very happy. He was telling everybody about Isha Kriya, how powerful the meditation is, and that, I don't know how it happened. Honestly, I don't know whether he did something.
Yeah.
But that's how it happened.
A lot of times I used to think he's a magician.
Yeah. Yeah. So the miracle of mind is, for those who are doing it, they should know it's a very powerful process. It may seem very simple, They may not understand the value of it, but it's extremely powerful. Extremely powerful.
Very inspiring to take up MOM, actually.
Yeah. 100%. And it's hardly a few minutes, 7 minutes. But the impact it can have on you is unbelievable.
Especially in a time where under, severe pressure, actually.
Yeah. So much. I mean, mental health is a very serious issue. We may not realize it's sitting here. But if you go out to schools and colleges, 40% students, adolescents have mental health issues. It's very, very essential. These kind of practices.
You travel with Sadhguru a lot. In 2017, when the Rally for Rivers happened, you traveled with him and you were saying that Sadhguru picked a song. Definitely, audience would want to know about it.
So, during that ride, in one of the satsangs, I don't remember exactly which one, but somewhere up north, I think, during one of the satsangs, Mohit Chauhan was there and he sang this song, Shiv Kailashon Ka Vasi. And Sadhguru heard it and it obviously struck a chord. And then next day, when he was traveling to the next destination, he asked Mohit to sit in the car with him, to sing. So Mohit sang and Sadhguru sang after him. He learned that entire song. And Mohit, traveled for a certain distance and then he recorded it and sent. So while we were traveling, we would play it and Sadhguru would hear and sing along and he mastered that song. And then during the course of this thing itself, I think it was in Haridwar or one of the satsangs, actually Sadhguru sang that song. By then he had mastered it. So it was such a beautiful thing, me and another volunteer who were traveling in the same car. Both of us, every time we would hear Sadhguru, after that, sing that song, we would tear up, because it brought such sweet memories, for both of us. It was the sweetest thing to hear Sadhguru sing and as he's driving, It was, I think, one of the most cherished moments of our lives.
He sang that song many, many satsangs.
Yes, including Mahashivratri, including with Mohit Chauhan in one of the Mahashivratris. He sang along, yeah. Yeah, there's something very special about that song. I don't know, maybe because, I've seen it evolve But otherwise, I mean, even when I heard Mohit sing it for the first time, there's something very special about it, There's so much of it's very sweet song, It's really like a child you're approaching Shiva. It's like that, like a very innocent child. He also changed a few words, lyrics, little bit. Mm-hmm. There was a place, there was something, Bhang and Dhatura. There was a mention of those two, which he changed to, something more Bhasma or Dhatura. Yeah, so Sadhguru has modified the thing in a way that he sees Shiva.
Of the many things that Sadhguru provides us towards our well-being, whether it is a Yantra or it is a Bhairavi Raksha, Sattva Sutra or Jiva Rasam, so many things that he has given us towards our own, well-being. Have you ever seen them having that kind of a power or any kind of, I don't know how to put it, some kind of a manifestation? Like this yantra was like this yesterday, today it is different, or some kind of a, something, a telling experience you have.
Yeah. So I'll give you an example about the Jivarasam. I had been using it from a fairly long time, from the time it was offered. And I could distinctly feel the difference, how the water felt within my body, but I didn't know what it was about. Of course, it's consecrated, and Sadhguru says. Then once I was traveling away from the ashram for a few months, and as the instruction is for placing the Jivarasam, we're supposed to place it in a container full of rice. So every time I would travel, I would place it in a large container of rice. Then one time I didn't have much rice. I just had a handful. So I put in a Ziploc packet the Jivarasam and the rice. And I traveled for some, I think, 3 or 4 months. And then when I came back, I found that the rice actually had turned to ashes. Really. I couldn't, then I realized how powerful it is, just seeing the physical effect of it on a handful of rice in a matter of 3 or 4 months. So I was very intrigued. I thought I should let Sadhguru know. Of course, it's his making, he should know. But I took that packet of ash to Sadhguru and said, Sadhguru, this is what I've done and this is what it has become. So he just, like that, he did his eyes. He didn't say anything. He didn't say anything.
What did it tell you?
What it told me is that, yes, obviously it is powerful, which is why I've created it. Why are you surprised?
Why I ask this question is that many times we all relate the physical form of Sadhguru and we kind of undervalue.
Of course, all the time.
The other, forms that he has given us. So I really wanted to see, with people who are with Sadhguru and, in the subtle presence, what it is, what do they really carry? I'm glad, he had this experience to share.
I've heard of many experiences of people who've had Devi Yantra, but I don't have one because I lived in the ashram. But this is a first-hand experience.
And one last thing, now that it's just happened, so I would like to ask you about this. This Kalabhairava Sthapana. And as when Swami was mentioning that we were expecting some 8,000 people, but at least 12 to 13,000 people would have turned up. And in such a short notice, this many people came in and all of those things. But I was just wondering your experience of being part of the process last night.
Yeah. So, this, you will recall Sadhguru when he spoke about this Kalabhairava and the consecration particularly, he said that I'm not in a state to do it now because this will take my life, this will be the last thing I will do. He's spoken about it many times, that it is that kind of a consecration. So then when he announced this, very suddenly, this Sthapana, which is one part of the consecration, he was asked, Sadhguru, you have said that, it's a life-taking process. So why now? So then Sadhguru said that not everything that happens here is my doing, there are things that have been set in motion which have brought things to such a stage that this can be done. Which is why it was sudden. It's not like he had, fixed a time for it. Because of all the other, this entire spiritual infrastructure he's created, I guess certain things are working on a self-start kind of a mode, which has created the necessary condition now for the Kalabhairava Sthanam to be, that Sthapana to have happened. So, my experience, I don't know, that entire day yesterday was something very special, I feel there are certain days during Guru Purnami I have felt this, and I felt that yesterday, that the very air around me was very different right from the morning while I was doing my sadhana. Then during the day, when I went for the lunch, we had, we didn't have brunch, we had lunch while eating, being in that. Something was very different. And that space also, I don't know how to call it. There was a certain, the quality of the air was very different. It's a calm and a very, I don't know if I can call it bliss, a very, very serene. I don't know, words fail me. You know how these things are. I cannot explain, but it's a very different, the air felt very different yesterday. And when he did that explosion of energy, I felt my body is going to burst open. It was amazing.
No, I couldn't sit.
Yeah.
As we were talking about it.
Yeah, no, I could see that. No, really, it was. Yeah, we are so blessed to be in his presence when he's doing these kind of things. It's like, I don't know what we have done to deserve this in our lifetimes, that we are born in his times, that we have this opportunity to experience. Yeah.
The place is throbbing with energy. And
yeah.
I was just telling, someone who was with me, this stone or this place, what we call as Kalabhairava, is going to be there for
millennia
thousands of years. And we happen to be that generation where
we could witness, and the whole, the look and feel of the lingam is it's so raw. It's like,
it definitely tells itself.
Yeah.
How to put it, but
the Kshetrapala.
The best ways to end this interview as well. Just to talk about a consecration experience. It just happened yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, I think because Sadhguru is with us and leading such an active life and getting involved in so many facets of activities, it's very easy to look beyond the persona. I mean, it's not very easy sometimes to look beyond the persona. You can just be arrested by the persona itself and, not look beyond, which is a shame. And I think a lot of people, coming back to, especially those who have been a very integral part of this, I think at some point of time they lose their way. They get caught up in Sadhguru's persona and they fail to see him for who he really is, I think it's very important to remind ourselves at all times, regardless of what persona he takes. The persona is really inconsequential. that persona is for that moment, for that person. It doesn't have any significance beyond that moment or beyond that person, you know. It's very, very temporary, very, very transactional. So we should always have that consciousness not to get caught up with the persona.
It was a very wonderful message. Thank you so much, Akka.
Thank
for
you.
spending this many hours with us. I know
it's been wonderful. I've never spoken so much at, you know, continuously in my life, but you just, it was like, you know, like an introspection for me. I've never really consciously thought of many of these things, definitely not articulated in a way that I did today. So you brought it all out. Kudos to you. Thank you. I'm grateful. Thank you.
We will see in another interesting episode. We'll bring in another guest. Please do comment whom you would like to have in this channel as a guest. Namaskaram.